I know this little girl, she's always asking me these really hard questions, and I have to be careful how I answer because she's a kid. I try to be more patient with her than I would with adults, and honest. She still thinks the world is this magical place. She's mature and naive all at once, and I try to protect that. One of the first questions I ever remember her asking me was what I wanted to be when I grow up. Well, what I think she was trying to ask me is what I thought I wanted to be when I was a kid, and the truth is, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. Sharp, independent, successful, reliable, witty, fun, extravagant. I thought I would travel the world and speak as many languages as I ever came across. I thought I would look like my mom, elegant and beautiful. I thought I'd live in the city like my favorite aunt. I believed I would attend operas, galas, ballets, Broadway shows every weekend. I thought I'd be married to a man who wore a tuxedo every day. I literally journaled about this when I was a kid. Clearly, I've always been into pomp and circumstance. The little girl ate this up. Did you do all those things already? I think she knew I hadn't. Her little mind was trying to wrap itself around and reconcile how children become adults that don't do all the things they thought they would do as children. I've done a lot of those things. I've answered almost defensively. And I have. But the truth is, my life doesn't necessarily mirror my childhood dreams. To begin with, I don't know a single man who wears a tuxedo every day. And while I am sharp, independent, successful, reliable, witty, fun, and occasionally extravagant, I've had a lot more bumps and bruises getting here. I've been fired from dream jobs. I dropped out of college, and I went back. I've spent a few nights in jail. Huh. I've looked at my bank account and literally seen less than nothing. I've lost friends. I've battled with my own self-esteem. I've hurt people deeply. I've been selfish, lazy, entitled, irresponsible, and a bunch of other adjectives I knew this little girl didn't really want to hear. I didn't know how to tell her that life isn't really a magical dream. It's a journey, at best. It's a story that you get to write, and sometimes it's really sad and dramatic and even painful. Sometimes you're the villain in your own story. Sheesh, okay. Remember, this is a kid. I have to protect her. I can't hit her with the cold realities of life, not yet. I have to preserve her innocence, so I told her what I've always really wanted to be is happy. Well, are you happy? I didn't know how to answer that in a way she would understand. I knew for her, happiness equated these very specific representations. I didn't think she could understand happiness as I've come to understand it. Slightly jaded, bitter, old. Suddenly, I thought back to a very specific moment in my life, so I answered her. Let me tell you a story. When I was 26, I moved to Los Angeles. I packed up my 2001 GMC Envoy with as much of my belongings that mattered, my 2-year-old pit bull Diamond, and a boyfriend at the time, and headed west. To be clear, that boyfriend wasn't moving with me. He was just a co-pilot meant to help me get my kicks as I took that famous voyage on Route 66. He didn't wear a tuxedo. Okay. So, I wanted to be a television producer, someone in Hollywood that people died to get meetings with, a black woman Who could impact television programming and hopefully change some of the imagery for people of color by greenlighting stories that represented the complexity of our lives? Powerful, like Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada. But in Hollywood, even Meryl Streep started at the bottom. I was in grad school at the time, so I was able to avoid working the typical waitress gig most 20-somethings get when they move to LA. And I survived by poorly budgeting my student loans, scholarships, and grant money. Good plan, right? This was a blessing because it allowed me the freedom to take one of the best internships in town. I was working at MBC in the Alternative Development Department. I was an unpaid intern. Trust me, a lot of people in my life were appalled that I, in my late 20s, would volunteer to work for free. But I saw the bigger picture. I saw this as an opportunity to get to where I wanted to go. Remember, Meryl Streep, Devil Wears Prada. After some time excelling as an intern, something magical happened. I was offered a position to be the assistant to the head of the department. The other assistants were not impressed. I was very Midwestern. I wore suits and heels to work every day, and no one in that environment dressed like that back then. They probably don't now. Everyone was cool and hip. And in retrospect, I am humiliated by all of the suits that I got from the Goodwill on Crenshaw and wore to work every day. A brown wool Hillary Clinton pantsuit was the worst offender. I was definitely raggedy. Low budget, but I was smart. I had just graduated from USC. Okay, slow down. It's Illini. It's still Illini for me, okay? But I did go to grad school at USC, and I had just graduated. So I approached things academically, showed up to work early. I left late. I still do that. I was humble and charming, and I wasn't even getting paid. And I think that's why he chose me. Well, I'll never forget the day he called me into his office and offered me that job. I have a very vivid memory of the sun shining through the window behind him. It created this halo-like effect. He looked like an angel, dropping down from the Hollywood heavens, offering me eternal life. The offer was terrible. Awful pay, long, terrible hours, and at the time I was driving back and forth to Illinois often to see my dad, who was dying of MS. So taking this job wouldn't have been able to do that. Plus I would have been broke, which honestly at that time wasn't a big deal. Did I mention I was shopping at Goodwill on Crenshaw? Despite the awful realities of this job, I knew it was a huge opportunity for me and everything I wanted to do. So naturally, I made my demands. I wanted health care, and I want time off to see my dad. He respectfully declined, but he urged me to think about this job and what it could do for me and my career. I remember sitting in that chair, and the sun started moving through the sky, and he stopped looking so much like an angel. My life split in two. Two roads formed in front of me. One represented my life had I taken that job and all the things I would have had to sacrifice. I was no stranger to sacrifice. In fact, all of my life and much of my success is to its credit. The other road represented my life making different kinds of sacrifices. I said no. And for a while, yeah. All right. For a while after that, I was miserable. I was stuck in this spiral of what ifs and fear, complete devastation with the idea that at the age of 30, I had ruined my life. This life I had laid out for myself since I was a child. Not too long after that, I do got this. Okay. Not too long after that, my dad died. And as devastating as that was, I was there with him in his final moments, holding his hand. They really they could never. Thank you. I was the last person he saw before heaven received him. And I still think that's one of my life's biggest blessings. And had I not ruined my life at the age of 30, I would not have been there with him. So much has happened in my years. So many lessons I've learned, so many more to still learn. But when it comes to happiness, I know that for me, true happiness is knowing that I can say no to anyone else's promises for happiness or opportunity because I already own it. That no circumstance, no matter how horrific or how amazing, can take that one thing from me that really matters. It's an unreasonable belief in myself and my ability to get back up and start over and still win. It's a willingness to define winning on my own terms, a perspective over life that accepts that the grass grows and flourishes wherever I choose to water it, and that the grass on the other side has no chapter in my story. I've said no a lot since then to even bigger opportunities, keys to my own happiness in my head, relationships, friends, jobs, paths. I've said no. 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 And it gets easier each time. I continue to reinforce that my happiness, my joy, it's internal. You can cue that Whitney Houston Greatest Love of All song now. To my surprise, the little girl, mature in ways beyond her years, understood this. She was happy for me. She was proud of me. I'm proud of me. I'm her. See, I thought most of you would have gotten this by now, but by your applause, I'm guessing you didn't. Okay, so I was a little girl all along. It was me. It was me. Okay. I've spent so much of my life trying to nurture this little girl inside, to make her proud of me, to give my life and myself the life that she dreamed of. And I just want her to be able to say, and in the end, it was all worth it. There aren't a lot of operas to attend in Champaign. And there are very few galas in Urbana. Still, no tuxedo-clad husband to speak of. But this life, the one I've said no for and yes to, this life is beautiful.